Hey guys, so here is 10.1 Day 2 notes. We're now going to talk about permutations. Okay, so what is a permutation? Well, let's go ahead and talk about that. So basically a permutation is the arrangement of objects in which order is important. Okay, so now let's talk about the formula for a permutation. So you're going to see this N and then PR. Okay, so basically N, what that represents is your total amount of objects. And then P represents permutation, and R is how many of those objects you're choosing. So I'm going to finish this off here. So we have N factorial over, and notice N minus R factorial in parentheses. So we talked about factorials in our 10.1 Day 1 notes. So that's where it's going to come back into here when we are talking about permutations. Okay, so as I said, N is the total number of objects. P, of course, is permutation, and then R is the number you choose. So how many of those things you want to choose. Okay. Now, what does this really say, NPR? I don't want to say NPR. Really what this is saying is that in permutations of R, okay, or in pick R. That's another way of saying. So we can say in permutations of R or in pick R. Okay. So let's do our first example. We have 8 permutations of 5. So that's what this represents. So 8 permutations of 5 or 8 pick 5. That's another way of saying it. We're going to go ahead and use our formula to find this answer. So our n value is 8. So I have 8 factorial over 8 minus 5 factorial. So remember, 8 minus 5, that's going to give us 3. So I have 8 factorial over 3 factorial. So you do want to do what's inside the parentheses first. So this is going to be 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, all over 3 times 2 times 1. We know that if you see something in the denominator that's the same in the numerator, you can cancel it out. Okay? And so our final answer here, when we just plug it into our calculator, is going to be 6,720. Okay. Okay, now let's talk about, well, how can we also plug this into your calculator? Because you can also do that. Some of these are going to get a little bit long here. So for number 2, notice this is going to say 7, and you can say pick or permutations of 4. And let's go ahead and use our calculator to do this. So going into our graphing, remember you can also use a scientific. So we have 7PR. So I need to put the number 7 first. I'm going to go to the math button again and go over to prob. Now notice number 2 is going to be our NPR. So I'm going to go down to that one, press enter, and then I'm going to use 4 and then press enter. And that gives us 840. And that'll be your answer. So I just wanted to do on number 1 where you kind of understood what happens, and we've seen that when we did factorial, but you can also use your calculator to do that. Now let's go ahead and do some examples here with permutations. Okay, so there are 12 people in an organization. We need to choose a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. How many different ways are there for you to pick your positions? So different. We always want different. That's always going to represent permutations, okay? Because we want to have order does matter, so we want different ways. So notice, let's say we have 12. So 12 is the total. We want to choose, well, how many officers? We want president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. That's 4. So using permutations, we want 12 permutations of 4. Let's go ahead and plug that into our calculator. So I do 12, I go to math, go over to prob, I do 2, so you can also click on the number 2, and then I want 4, and I press enter. So that's going to be 11,880. Okay, let's go and do number 4. So it says the math club is picking a president and vice president. There are 15 members, and how many different ways can the positions be filled? So once again, we're going to use permutation here. So notice we have 15 total, and we want to choose 2 officers because this is just president and vice president. So we have 15, which is our n value, permutations of 2, 2 is our r value. Once again, we're just going to plug this into our calculator. So I do the number 15, I go to math, go over to prob, and then go down to NPR, and I'm choosing 2 of those, and I'm going to get 210. So that's how many ways the positions can be filled. Okay. Okay, make sure you guys watch part 2 of the 10.1 Day 2 note.